And now we're very happy to welcome Becca Bean.
Good morning, my friends. Oh, I am so thrilled to be back here with you today, just a couple of days before Christmas. And this morning we are continuing with our December theme of light, which is a perfect idea to explore in this joyful month. I've always associated light with this holiday season. Growing up in a pretty humble home, adding that live Christmas tree and those big old fashioned Christmas light bulbs into the living room was so magical. I used to spend hours just lying on the floor watching the lights, or even lying on my back with my head under the tree, looking up through the branches for a new perspective. And at Christmas, across the room from the tree was always a real fire in our fireplace. That smell of the tree and the crackling fire just seemed to fill our whole house with an enchantment that only came once a year. And I was really fortunate to grow up in a little town that maybe had the best Christmas light of all. Because in North Carolina, we had a beautiful mountain across a mile, about a mile away from my home. And every year since 1954, my community carried on the tradition of lighting a huge star on top of the mountain to shine through all the Christmas holidays. I could look out my bedroom window every night and see the star on top of High Brighton Mountain and know that no matter what was going on in the world, Christmas was here and all was well. It was something we could count on, just like the seasons. And I knew even as a child that this would be a home beacon shining for me. No matter where I traveled, it would always bring me back to home in my heart. So many wonderful traditions center on the light in this time of the year. Hanukkah, the Jewish festival of lights, was taking place just a few weeks ago, where families light a candle on each of the 8 nights in remembrance. The winter solstice is coming up quickly this coming Tuesday, the 21st, when we ride out the longest night of the year and we celebrate the return of the sun and the lengthening of sunlight to help us anticipate spring. So let's jump in and look at that word light metaphysically. In Revealing Word, Charles Fillmore teaches that light is the understanding principle in mind. Light is our symbol of wisdom and intelligence. When Jesus said, "I am the light of the world," he meant he was the expresser of truth with a capital T in all aspects. In Unity and New Thought, we know that our minds and our thinking are very important to how we live our lives. So it's logical that Mr. Fillmore would strongly suggest we claim this faculty, and saying we cannot affirm it too often with the words, "I am intelligence. I am the light of the world." Well, with my personal Christmas star in mind, of course, I had to look up the Star of Bethlehem, which symbolizes our belief in our inner divinity. When we believe in ourselves and in God within, we strive to do our very best, which is the will of God. So, what do all these wonderful, sort of disparate ideas mean to us this morning? Well, right now, it seems that our nation and our world is still struggling at that crossroads of COVID and all its cousins, as one reporter so cleverly said. After the last 2 years of challenges, we've sort of danced a medical minuet, 1 step forward and 2 steps back. And I bet a lot of us, including me, are pretty exhausted with it, as we still have to navigate that outer world where we have to be cautious and alert. These good words, however, jumped out of the daily word archives for me this week. Even at times when our human eyes may only see darkness, I know there is always light behind it. I hold to the truth that any apparent gloom is temporary and will yield to light and joy. I have to admit, as I explored our topic for this week, I seemed to resonate a bit more with the ancient people of the earth, who long before Christianity came to be, marked the winter solstice, or the Yule, as it was called. It's easy to imagine how challenging the impending winter months could seem for those whose very survival depended on the season, and how sad it must have been to see the light dwindling into the longest night of the year. Now, while there may have been even some nagging fear that the sun might never, ever reappear, these resilient folks came to see the solstice as a time of reflection, a time to be still, to plan, and anticipate the day when the sleeping earth would come back to life. On this one day next week, when the sun seems to stand still in the sky, everyone on earth can sense that a change is coming. So people gathered in their harvest and hunkered down and lit bonfires to conquer the darkness and bring luck for the new year. It was a time to say goodbye to the old and welcome the new, and to have hope for the best that was yet to come. This really gave me some inspiration about light and how I can raise my perspective this very week to look above the somewhat dire media reports and refresh my thinking about the great hopefulness of this season. Ed Rabel, a longtime treasured teacher of ministers at Unity Village, offers us a wonderful insight into the unity meaning of the season. He describes the birth of the Christ Spirit within us as that point in which we realize I have something called spiritual awareness. It's always been there, but now it is born in my consciousness knowing. I recognize it is born in me. Now, that's a pretty positive thought when you think about it. In New Thought and Unity, of course, positive thinking is a skill we utilize daily. And we know as we change our thinking and see the good, we can take our spiritual awareness even further as we work to be God's hands and feet on earth. In this season, when our spiritual awareness, our Christ Spirit, becomes clearer and takes on a greater precedence in our lives. Now, a lot of times during the year, it's easy to get distracted from remembering God's goodness and the spiritual light we have inside. But this is the perfect season to intentionally seek out that light in every way possible. Myrtle Fillmore wisely called it the spirit of the season that quickens the soul of mankind. It reminds us that Christmas is the season of unselfishness. Now, some of us might remember clearly when our little school friends reached the age when they began to doubt that Santa Claus tradition. Well, my mom was pretty smart, and she explained it to me by saying Santa Claus really represented the spirit of Christmas. And that meant way more than just getting stuff. It was probably one of the first grown-up truths I really understood, that Christmas was a time to remember all that the holiday meant. Church and caroling, and yes, some toys too, but mostly the feeling of the holiday. And that feeling of giving love and kindness and generosity that we all share in this season. Just like Ebenezer Scrooge vows in Dickens' Christmas Carol, I will keep Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. Somehow I understood, even as a little Baptist kid, that spirit is a heart thing, an unselfishness that I need to cultivate more throughout the year. Now, all these years later, Eric Butterworth seems to say it best in one of his amazing sermons from the 1980s, where he reminds us that there is a person within you, God-sized. Isn't that a curious thought? This God-sized being is greater than any weakness or difficulty. any illness or problems we could ever have. Something within us God-sized is the promise of the season. This is the divine dimension of each one of us that can be reborn right now, reawakened and released so that we can become the people we desire to be. Butterworth reminds us that the light we are talking about is the Christ Spirit in all of us, and we celebrate it as we see in us something that we are all worthy of, and recognizing that spark, that divine idea, is the unborn possibility of a limitless life. And ours is the privilege of giving birth to it, of releasing it to the world. Right this minute, I'm seeing some of your beautiful faces, and I see the Christ light in your eyes and shining in your smiles. And I know with you that regardless of where you are or what you are called to do in this holiday season, I know you will let your light shine. I see you fearless, filled with light in all things in perfect order, and know that all is well. Today and in this coming week, even all the way into the new year, I want us to think of truth with a capital T as light. Think of it as shining at all times as a guide to direct us. And just like we use a dimmer switch on a light fixture or even asking Alexa, we have the power to increase our brightness and to make it radiate to the ends of the earth, for we are filled with the light of God. As Reverend Deanne Morency wrote in this year's Unity Advent booklet, at Christmas we celebrate the true light which enlightens everyone. As the days shorten and darkness lengthens, we are invited to stand in the light of our divine awareness of our Christ nature. This is our great work, to shine our light and share our joy every day, all year round. To be the light even when we or all those around us are lonely, or don't smell any cookies baking or hear any carolers. The reminder this holiday season is to celebrate our divinity that we are and joyfully share our light with the world. In his amazing book, The Flow of Life, Eric Butterworth wrote these prophetic words back in 1982. It echoes today. We are living in a complex and changing world. If there is one thing one needs more than anything else, it is light. Light in the terms of insight into self, guidance along life's way, knowledge into the secrets of the universe, and the wisdom to use light and never abuse it. Light is the reality of God in all creation and the reality of our own potential. So this week, whenever you see a holiday light display or even stop and appreciate the sunshine, I want you to take time to turn within and just visualize being surrounded by and filled with spiritual light, that truth of our being. It is the truth about every single person on the earth. And during this season especially, take some time to see the light present in all people and situations in the world. Right now is the time to remember that we walk in faith and not by sight. And we can trust in this light to give us all the guidance we will ever need. Listening to our still small voice, we are always directed to our highest good. Yes, Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And he also said, you are the light of the world. The same light that shone through Jesus shines through us. We too can walk in the light. And to walk in the light of the Christ Spirit is to give more than we receive, to serve more than we are served, to love more than we are loved, and to let go and let God more than we insist on having our personal way. So, my dear friends, Christmas is coming. Yay! In these next few days, let's be especially mindful of carrying the light into the world. And as we close out our time together this morning, I encourage you all to have yourself a merry little Christmas. And of course, let your hearts be light. And so it is. Amen.